It is told that once, in a valley carved by a slow river, a young merchant set a small stall of simple wares in a quieter dream, and people whispered that great fortunes sprout overnight. He smiled and placed a bowl of seeds at the edge of his goods, as if offering both trade and promise, and the bowl caught the light like a small sun. The merchant watched the road in the sky, not to hurry his work but to learn how the land answered, and he knelt to tend the first seed with care. Travelers came with bright coins and louder plans, offering quick partnerships and promises of growth in a season if he would move faster and dream bigger. But the merchant noticed how these offers were often like wind, loud for a moment and gone. He listened, weighed them, and kept the bowl near his hand, preferring steady trade to sudden leaps. In the evening he would close the stall and press his palm above the seeds, wondering how a life builds slowly, and so he rose each dawn to do the small things again. A wealthy trader from the city, polished and persuasive though nameless in the telling, urged the merchant to sell the seeds and buy a caravan of faster goods, saying fortune favors bold hands. The merchant felt the pull, felt the desire for speed, but placed one seed in his fist and breathed, knowing what small roots can do beneath the soil. He declined the caravan and kept his stall modest, choosing depth over breadth, and the seed lay warm until spring. Some say the land itself watched and approved of small hands, for a seed needs darkness and patience before it finds the sun, and the merchant began to plant not for spectacle, but for seasons. Customers came slowly, relationships grew like folds of fabric, and each returning face became a small stake in a foundation. He kept records not of vanity, but of stewardship, learning that growth can be measured in footprints, not fireworks. He learned to call patience a craft, tending customers like young saplings, pruning promises and composting mistakes so that what remained could grow true. Sometimes a harvest was humble, sometimes it surprised him, and each yielded lessons he stored as carefully as seed. The stall lived on the road and in the valley, and the merchant's mind kept a map of small returns that would later guide larger choices. Years passed, and storms gathered with no calendar to warn anyone, but the sky grew heavy, and caravans that once sang on the road slowed their song, and rumors of scarcity and quick fortunes turned to cries for shelter. The merchant watched rain bruise the valley fields and felt customers tighten their coins, which tested the thin patience he had sown into his days. He paused at night and listened to the river's slow answer, knowing a storm would show what his small work could weather. One night, a fire swept an old neighbor's stall and spread fear like dry straw, taking goods and quiet fortunes in its hunger, and the valley's traders watched as smoke erased years of labor in an hour. It was a cruel lesson that shouted of fragility, and the merchant felt a tremor of dread for what he had slowly built. He sheltered what he could, counted his losses, and realized that some security must be more than hope. In the days after, loud voices returned with sharper edges, urging him to build high walls or chase quick ventures to make back what was gone, arguing that speed would mend the wound. Those voices promised grand returns for a trade of patience, and many around him leapt toward them, seeking comfort in movement rather than in roots. The merchant listened but noticed how haste bred brittle hopes, and he remembered the small bowl of seeds that had never promised the impossible. He walked through the valley and counted the small things: the neighbor who shared grain, the young apprentice who kept faithful hours, the craftsman whose honest work returned time and trust, and he realized these were a different currency, slow but steady. The test of the storm had separated quick surplus from lasting support, and the merchant's ledger began to record not only coins, but the names and debts of goodwill. He closed the book at dusk with a steadier heart, not because he was richer in coin, but because his network of small reliances had not been consumed. Some traders rebuilt faster, their new stalls bright but shallow, while others, like the merchant, strengthened foundations and taught apprentices honest craft. And slowly the valley rearranged itself around new truths. What survived the storm was not the loudest stall, but those who had tended the land and the people beneath their wares. The merchant sharpened his tools and redoubled small practices, preparing for choices ahead. After the worst had passed, a new opportunity arrived like a river cutting a different course. A neighbor proposed a bold plan to expand markets with a fast caravan, promising great reach for little delay, and many found the promise irresistible. The merchant felt the pull again, that same murmuring wind that had once offered the caravan, but this time the need was heavier and the stakes clearer. He slept on the decision, remembering embers and seed, knowing that how he chose would touch more than his own stall. He sought counsel from an old woman who mended nets at the river and kept a lifetime of winters in her eyes, and she told him a parable of a man who chased thunder and lost his harvest to wind. The merchant listened to her slow metaphors about soil and time, and the words sank like rain into his memory, not as fear, but as a tool to shape the choice. He thanked her and went to the ledger, weighing not merely profit, but durability. He measured his work not by the size of his dreams, but by the depth of his roots. How many apprentices knew the craft? How many neighbors could rely on him in lean seasons? How much care he had woven into his offerings? And these metrics guided a different plan. Instead of a caravan, he proposed a network of slow exchanges, agreements to trade through seasons, and to teach newcomers the craft for honest wages. The valley responded in pieces, some skeptical, some faithful, and the plan began like a low fire. Every day the quicker path called louder, with merchants waving banners and promising immediate change. But the merchant found courage not in haste, but in the slow steadiness of his apprentices and the small trust he had accumulated. He chose to teach and bind the valley through patient exchange rather than chase a single quick return, trusting the long arc of steadiness. As he committed, others began to mirror that steadiness, and a new rhythm took hold along the river. He exchanged small favors for learning, extended credit to those he trusted, and taught two young hands to keep honest ledgers, and like seeds scattered in a careful pattern, these acts formed a network more resilient than a single caravan. The plan was not glamorous, but it stitched weakness into strength, turn by turn. The merchant watched the network grow slowly, knowing this choice would be tested by time. Years moved as seasons, some lean and some abundant, and the merchant's modest stall became the heart of a slow exchange where apprentices now led their own carts and neighbors traded without fear of fleeting ruin. The valley whispered that steady work had bred not only goods but trust, and travelers came to learn the method, not to see a spectacle. The merchant, older now, walked the lanes with a quiet smile, recognizing that small steady acts had rippled out like rings on water. Wealth arrived differently, not as a single pile of coins but as workshops humming with craft, apprentices who could teach others, and a ledger of promises honored across years, and the merchant began to count these as riches. He saw how slow building allowed the valley to endure droughts and fires with less ruin, and how children played beneath the shade of awnings that had once been fragile. The reward was quiet and complete, a long day's light that settles without clamor. Once, the polished trader returned with a caravan, prosperous and bright, and he marveled at how the valley's traders had not simply grown, but learned to hold what they gained. And he asked the merchant what secret made their gains lasting. The merchant lifted his hand to the bowl of seeds, now worn smooth, and said that they had chosen seasons over spectacles and steadiness over suddenness, and the trader listened like a man hearing an old truth. The caravan moved on, and the valley kept its rhythm. The apprentices grew older and taught others, and the merchant's simple methods, credit with care, teaching the craft, measuring risk by relationships became practices across the valley, and the lessons of smoke and storm receded into wise ritual. The merchant found his reward not in a single fortune, but in a community that could stand when winds came. He placed the bowl of seeds on a shelf in the meeting place, a quiet relic of beginnings. In the evening of his life, he sat by the river and watched children run the routes he once walked, and understood that what he had built slowly had lasted because each small choice honored time and trust. The parable ends with a simple truth: a slow-built business lasts longest, for it becomes woven into the life of a place and the habits of its people. Take with you the lesson of steady planting and deliberate choices, and your work may become an orchard that shelters many.